वहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
अग्रे वह्निः पृष्ठे भानुः रात्रौ जुगुकसमर्पितजानुः करतलभिक्षस्तरुतलवासः तदपि न मुञ्चत्याशापाशः कुरुते गङ्गासागरगमनं व्रतपरिपालनमथवा दानम् ज्ञानविहीनः सर्वमतेन मुक्तिं न भजति जन्मशतेन। सुरमन्दिरतरुमूलनिवासः शय्याभूतलमजिनं वासः सर्वपरिग्रहभोगत्यागः कस्य सुखं न करोति विरागः। योगरतो वा भोगरतो वा सङ्गरतो वा सङ्गविहीनः यस्य ब्रह्मणि रमते चित्तं नन्दति नन्दति नन्दत्येव। भगवद्गीता किञ्चिदधीता गङ्गाजललवकणिका पीता सकृदपि येन मुरारिसमर्चा क्रियते तस्य यमेन न चर्चा। पुनरपि जननं पुनरपि मरणं पुनरपि जननी जठरे शयनम्। इह संसारे बहुदुस्तारे कृपया पारे पाहि मुरारे। रथ्याचर्पटविरचितग्रन्थः पुण्या पुण्यविवर्जितपन्थः योगी योगनियोजितचित्तो रमते बालोन्मत्तवदेव। कस्त्वं कोऽहं कुतायातः कामे जननी को मे तातः इति परिभावय सर्वमसारम् विश्वं त्यक्त्वा स्वप्नविचारम्। त्वयि मयि चान्यत्रैको विष्णुः व्यर्थं कुप्यसि मय्यसहिष्णुः। भवसमचित्तः सर्वत्र त्वं वाञ्छस्य चिराद्यदि विष्णु त्वम्। शत्रौ मित्रे पुत्रे बन्धौ मा कुरु यत्नं विग्रहसन्धौ। सर्वस्मिन्नपि पश्यात्मानं सर्वत्रोत्सृज भेदाज्ञानम्।
Dwelling under tree in temple, sleeping on ground, wearing skin, renouncing all possession and enjoyment, to him will not dispassion bring happiness. So this verse 18, which is placed after the sequence of 3 verses from 15 to 17, is giving an idea of what is the true spirit of renunciation. 15, 16 and 17 talked about 3 kinds of people who by their practices cannot get realization. Then renunciation of desires appears like a myth. This verse corrects that misconception that it is not so. It is entirely possible. But what is the essence of that? What is the crux of that? That's what this verse says. Here is also he is giving a picture of person who is dwelling under a tree in a temple. That means he doesn't even have a house of his own. Sleeping on the ground. He is not even having a comfort of sleeping on the mattress. Wearing skin. That means something to cover his body, which is found. That is what he is using, not fancy clothes. Renouncing all possession and enjoyment. One of the key phrases here in this verse is this Sarva Parigraha Bhoga Tyagaha. It's a fantastic construction. Swamiji revels in this when he takes this verse. Sarva Parigraha Bhoga Tyagaha. Renouncing all the enjoyment and the possession. Here, the key term which is Bhoga Tyagaha, Sarva Parigraha Bhoga Tyagaha, it is to be understood as that he is not keen on the enjoyment that is coming out of any contact born pleasure, which is what normally people are running after. So that is the sense of renunciation. The spirit of renunciation is that nothing in the world can offer him any amount of enjoyment or happiness. His happiness is somewhere else, which is he is going to say in the next verse. So the verse may sound as though you are renouncing possession, which is not I would say a wrong understanding, but the crux of the renunciation of possession is not actually whether you have that possession or not, but that possessive attitude in that possession. The possessive attitude in the enjoyment that is coming out of that possession. That is why in the next verse he is very clearly going to say, whether you are in the yoga or whether you are in the bhoga, he is going to correct this, because we have seen great men of renunciation in this country who have lived extreme lives on both the extremes. King Janaka is always considered a jnani himself, but a great man of renunciation. He was a king with all the pleasures that is due for a king, and he was running the whole kingdom. Again, Sudama is considered a great man of renunciation, jnani also himself. He lived most of his life as a pauper who did not have even proper food to feed his family. To that extent was his poverty, friend of Krishna. In both the extreme cases, what is common for them is the sense of renunciation or the sense of dispossessive attitude. So he says, Sarva Parigraha Bhoga Tyagaha Kasya Sukham Na Karoti Viragaha. Viragaha, who is a person of a dispassionate attitude, Viraga, from there only Vairagya comes. Anybody who has this Vairagya, how will he not be happy in this world? This is what he is asking. So, when we talk about true happiness in the world, it is there only in renunciation. In fact, Swami Ramtirtha very beautifully uses these two words, yoga and bhoga, this way. Swamiji has used that same way in the chapter renunciation in Vedanta treatise also. Usually in the world, the term yoga is associated with spirituality. Yoga means union. So a person who is in yoga is said to be in a religious and spiritual way of life. Bhoga means enjoyment, and usually a person who is associated with this term bhoga or a bhogi is one who is indulging in the life in the world with all sorts of enjoyment. He is called as a bhogi. In other words, yoga and bhoga are normally and generally used as two distinct ways of life. But Swami Ramtirtha goes into the depth of the word and says, he takes the word bhoga as to mean only enjoyment, and he says true enjoyment isn't true yoga only. That means yoga and bhoga have to go together. He is not obviously talking about sensual enjoyment, he is talking about true enjoyment. True enjoyment isn't true yoga. So a person who is united with the self, or let us say in the path of union with the self, he is the person who is going to have relative happiness in the world also. He is going to be a person who is free from agitation and wants. What really causes agitations is the gurgling desires within us. So, a person like Janaka, who probably commanded the entire wealth, Ambarisha, Janaka, Rama, these are all great stalwarts who had lived a king's life. Sudama and others lived a pauper's life. But both of them had absolute control over their personality in terms of not wanting to desire anything in terms of acquisition, in terms of enjoyment. Both. Acquisition and enjoyment are the two main motivating factors that are there for the human being. I have to acquire this and I have to enjoy this. If a person is able to rise above that desire, then he is actually practicing what is known as this Vairagya. He is the person who is going to be extremely happy. Yes, sir.
Sudama was not having anything, and Janaka was having everything. So how? There is a question of renunciation for Sudama.
That is what it means. So, what is our understanding of renunciation? Renunciation is not giving up something of your possession. Renunciation is an attitude of dispossession at the mental level. Irrespective of whether you have something or not, if you are holding on to something internally, mentally, that is why he said in the 16th verse, he is talking about a person who is not even having a begging bowl, karatala bhikshas tarutalavasa, but he has still the gusts of desire not leaving within him. So he cannot be called as a renunciate, though outwardly he has left everything. Sudama ran a family, probably a big family with his wife and children, but he was always constantly immersed in the thought of Brahman. How and where and how the family was taken care of, he was completely detached from it. Though when we say he is not an indifferent person who did not have love for his family, not like that. So that is what is meant by a dispossessive attitude. King Janaka, on the other hand, had the entire kingdom. He did not leave the kingdom and go to the forest. He was ruling the kingdom well, but even though he possessed everything, he was absolutely having a dispossessive attitude towards them. It was very clearly indicated in an episode where King Janaka, along with others, were supposed to take Vedantic lessons from the Guru, and since he was in the administration and various other activities, he was a bit late for the class. The Guru waited for him. No Guru worth the name will wait for any student in terms of starting the class. But the Guru will wait if he knows the Shishya is a deserving student, and it is for him that the Guru takes the class actually. He is a deserving student, means he is the Adhikari. Adi Shankaracharya had maybe many disciples, but 4 of them we know are the chief disciples. Padmapada, Hastamalaka, Sureshwaracharya and Totakacharya. In fact, all these 4 represent the 4 aspects of the spiritual sadhana also. The karma marga, the bhakti marga, the absolute jnana marga, and the absolute surrender marga. Okay. Of these, so Shankaracharya used to take Upanishad classes, and his first commentary was on first commentary was on Sahasranama, then he wrote Bhashya on Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, Dashopanishad. So he used to take Upanishad classes. Of all the disciples, Totakacharya was not considered, within quotes, I am saying all of them are Acharyas, we are not to talk about any of them, I am saying he was not considered a very bright student, as much as other stalwarts who are all sitting there. But he used to do the service to Shankaracharya in the most dedicated way. From washing the clothes to cleaning, whatever he has to do, that he dedicatedly he did. So Shankaracharya, and see, you have to imagine the state in which he was sitting, and Upanishad class was going to take place. Only they were there, the disciples. That's how the real Vedanta classes. Maybe we can take solace if people are not coming to the class. The stuff is high that way. So Sanat Kumar has talked about only 4 people. Only 4 people were attending the class there. So this Shankaracharya was waiting for Totakacharya to come. Others, though they did not express it outwardly, they were feeling inside that as to anyway Totakacharya is going to get immersed in Shankaracharya's form and his way he speaks. He was very devoted that way. So why are we waiting? This sort of probably a thought or a feeling crossed their mind, and Adi Shankaracharya knew this. With that great compassion in his mind, he just looked at Totakacharya the other side with his eye on the side. Totakacharya saw that and he felt an extreme grace flow through him. That is Guru's grace. And immediately, in that same moment, in a vritta known as Totaka Vrittam, he composed a Ashtakam on Shankaracharya known as Totaka Ashtakam. In Totaka Ashtakam is considered to be like equivalent of national anthem in the spiritual world, you can say. Whenever that is sung, you have to keep quiet and just listen to it. Totaka Ashtakam is about Adi Shankaracharya. Totakacharya composed Vitita kila shastra sutta jalate mahito panishad katita tanite Hridaye kalaye vimalam charanam bhava shankara deshikame charanam. This bhava shankara deshikame charanam comes every stanza, and 8 verses he composed as Totaka Ashtakam. He was not considered to be a stalwart, he was not considered to be a great poet or anything like that, but it just came out of him. It is all due to the grace of Shankaracharya. So Shankaracharya was just holding on or waiting, not with reference to anybody and everybody. He knows who is the Adhikari. Like that, in case of King Janaka, who was a great student of Upanishad, who was a great Adhikari for the knowledge, Brahma Vidya, the Guru was waiting. And other students were probably thinking that we are murmuring among themselves, which the Guru noticed. There will be obviously, comments being passed that because he is the king, he is waiting. Like that, these comments will be passed. But which is not the case. So the Guru wanted to teach them a lesson. Not only teach them a lesson, he wanted to make sure they understand the greatness of Janaka also. So the king came, and then the class started. Midway during the class, through his maya, through his illusory power, through some magical power, you can say, he set the whole town ablaze, which is the town of Mithila where King Janaka was ruling. They were maybe seated at an elevated place, maybe a hilltop or something, from where everybody suddenly saw that the whole city is in flames. It was an illusion that he had created there. So everybody panicked and ran helter-skelter to save whatever they could save. Whatever possession they had. King Janaka did not even turn that way. It is not that he saw and controlled himself. He was not even aware that something was happening like that, because once he was in the class, he was fully focused on what Guru is saying, what is the subject, and that is what is. So in the class, he was a student. In the palace, he was a king. In the family, maybe he was a head of the family. Whatever it is, the role that he played, to the fullest extent he played without getting attached even 1% there. That is called a sense of renunciation. This is a sense of dispassion. So we cannot ask what did Sudama renounce. Swami Vivekananda says, to any normal beggar that you see on the road, don't go and preach Vedanta, because he is needing food. Okay, give him food. Give him employment. Give him whatever he wants. What has a beggar got to renounce? But Sudama was not a normal beggar. Sudama was replete with wisdom. That is the crux of the message here. The crux of the message is that renunciation is wisdom. Renunciation is knowledge. Renunciation is not giving up. Renunciation is taking up something higher because of your higher knowledge, because of which you have a dispossessive attitude towards something lower. It may be there, may not be there, according to your karma, according to your prarabdha, you may be there enjoying certain things, but that does not really count at your mental level. At the mental level, that person is a extreme renunciate. So what we need to understand here is, it is this renunciation that gives the joy, nothing else that gives the joy. A person can be outwardly stripped of everything. Another incident comes to mind, episode in the life of a great saint in South India called Pattinatthar. Pattinatthar was a big trader, a big businessman in his Purvashrama life, and then he became a renunciate. This is the story. Truly, he became a renunciate, and he was able to influence many people in the society with the knowledge of Vedanta. It is said one king became a renunciate and he was his shishya. He was the shishya of this Pattinatthar. Legends say it is the great king Bhatrahari, but we do not know. But in Tamil, he was called as Bhadragiri. Bhadragiri was so he also actually left all his kingdom and palace and all the enjoyments with and he was just a wandering monk along with him. Wherever they go, they take bhiksha and eat in the temple, whatever, like that their life was there. So, but this the king was a real good sadhaka. Now we can't call him king. His disciple was a real great sadhaka, and he was working genuinely towards self-realization. As he was doing like this, there was a dog which was faithfully following the disciple. This dog was, wherever the dog was not having any motive or intention, but wherever they were going, it was following him, and he did not have anything against it, so he took it along, and whatever he got, he fed the dog also. Like that it was. One day, there was a big temple. Certain temples in South India, they are so big that on eastern end and western end are quite far apart. So this Guru Pattinatthar was sitting in the, let us say, the east portion of the temple, and he was there singing to himself, and whoever gave whatever they gave, he was he was preaching whatever he was preaching. And this disciple was on the western gate. A wealthy person came with his daughter, and he said to the saint, "My daughter wants to marry only a saint, so I humbly submit before you that you have to accept her in marriage." So this Guru said, "I have renounced all my family and I genuinely wanted to be in this path. I don't want to be a samsari again. But go to the western gate. My disciple is there. He is a samsari. You can approach him," he said. So this man takes his word and goes to the other gate. And there he sees that another monk is sitting, relatively younger monk. And so he approached and he said that I was sent by the Guru on the other side that you have to accept my daughter because she is desirous of. So he was really shocked because he has renounced everything and came and he was genuinely doing everything. So he came back running to his Guru and he said, how can you say like this? I'm genuinely trying to renounce everything and I'm in the path of realization. So he was saying, but what is it that you are having that relation with the dog? You really do not know that how without your knowledge, without your awareness, you develop a possessive. Last class we were talking about that deer example. Like that, a possessive attitude can come even with a dog where you have no relationship earlier, but it can develop there. Or it can be just having a begging bowl in your hand and that begging bowl alone that you can have a possessive attitude. I was told by a person who had spent some time in Himalayas, where there are many Swamis who are real renunciates. I mean, again, we are not here to really comment upon them, but what happens after a while when they have ashram or something like that, they will have just a straw mat to sleep, all this sort of a simple life they live. But it could be that this is my place, this is my straw mat. They could leave everything, and they could even have that possessive attitude towards that, So, a true guru who is wanting the student to rise above all desires in the Vedantic path will even find out these subtle things and want him to get out of this sort of a samsara also. So the story goes, then the disciple understood, and that begging bowl and the dog that he had final possession, he broke the begging bowl on the dog got killed, the begging bowl broke, and the king, who was the disciple, he went on to realize the self before the guru. This is the story, very interesting story. Otherwise, he was well prepared. That's what it means. Now, a person can renounce all the possession. He can have that attitude of which is a possessive attitude, even at the height of renunciation. Also, it's possible. Again, since we are talking about the highest principles, we are not to comment on any of these great masters, any of these rishis who have, undertaken this journey. It's a great thing. But the theorem is, dispossessive attitude at the mental level marks renunciation. Irrespective of whatever you possess. You can possess the whole kingdom. Sometimes you cannot possess anything. So this is what is going to give happiness. What is the reason? What is the reason for this dispossessive attitude bringing happiness? Any sort of possession that we have, at the subtle level, at the gross level, at the material level, whatever level that you have, body is our possession. Our intellect is our possession. All the things associated with intellect is our possession. Honor is our possession. Pride is our possession. Wealth is the possession. Family is a possession. All these things are the possessions of us. Finally, this body, mind, intellect is also our possessions. Okay? Because we say my body, my mind, my intellect. Whenever you possess something, what is invariably hidden behind that possession is a lurking fear. A lurking fear that what will happen if I lose this. It is a what you call, it's a package deal with any possession. Any possession is immediately that is fraught with fear. Only antidote for that is a dispossessive attitude, nothing else. See, there is a verse in Tirukural which says about renunciation. Tirukural is a great book which talks about the dharma, artha, kama aspect of the human life in various chapters. Every chapter has 10 verses. In the chapter of renunciation, he talks about how a person is free from any problem, from any thing or being in the world, as long as he is distanced himself away from it. The Kural says, Yadanin Ningyan Nondan Adanin Ilan. It is probably the only Kural in the whole 1330 verses where the lips don't touch each other when you say. The lips touch each other when there's a sound of pa or ma. That varga only. Okay. Pa, ba, ba, ma. Only when that is why that is what do they say? That varga is called something which has to do with lips. Pa varga. So that in this verse, pa and ma is not there. But what is interesting is he is asking us to remember that he is talking about detachment. So the lips don't get attached to each other. At least that you remember. That's what this verse is saying. The meaning is whichever object that you have detached yourself from that object, there is no problem for you. Even in a relative sense. Say, for example, if a person is genuinely not interested in cricket, Whether India wins, loses, whether a person retires or that, he has no issue at all. From that side, he has no problem at all, no agitation at all for him. He may still sit with his friends and watch the match. India may win, India may lose. Not one bit will touch him. Not one bit will touch him, because from that aspect he has distanced. This you can say, I'm not talking about he is man of renunciation, but this is the formula. The formula is, from whichever aspect you have distanced yourself, you have detached yourself, from there is no fear. If a person is attached to money, there is fear with reference to money. If a person is attached to family, there is a fear because of that attachment. If a person is attached to honor, if a person is attached to knowledge, if a person is attached to Shastras, a very interesting verse comes in Vairagya Shatakam. He is talking about Vairagya only here. The great Bhartrhari only wrote that Vairagya Shatakam. I think he has wrote the 100 verses on Shringara Shatakam, which is about romance, which is about all the enjoyment that a person goes through. And then he became a great renunciate. That's why I said there is whether it's history or conjecture, we do not know. The king that we were talking about in the story is the same, Bhartrhari, they say, but we do not know. Probably they lived in the same time, I really do not know. But Bhartrhari was considered a great, very great renunciate and a great king also. He was like that, it was. And then he writes Niti Shatakam, 100 verses on, what do you say, Niti, law, the right codes, the right moral context. And then he writes 100 verses on Vairagya Shatakam. In that he says, we have not read all those things, but this one verse is very famous, that only we know. Bhoge Roga Bayam, Kule Chuti Bayam, Vitte Nripalad Bayam, Mane Dainya Bayam, Bale Ripu Bayam, Rupe Jaraya Bayam, Shastre Vadi Bayam, Gune Khala Kaye Kritantad Bayam, Sarvam Vastu Bhayanvitam, Bhuvinrana, Vairagya Meva Bayam. Only Vairagya is the Abhayam, he says. Everything else is fraught with fear. Bhoge Roga Bayam. You indulge in enjoyment, but Roga Bayam, there is a fear of disease in that. Extreme indulgence in anything without having a self-discipline, it is going to lead to disease. Bhoge Roga Bayam. Kule Chuti Bayam. There is a honor of the family name, right? There is always a fear of what if that name falls. There is so much that they are afraid of, whether anybody, let us say, marries in a different family, or it could be anything. That name of that family, that it may fall down, that is a name. Kule Chuti Bayam. Vitte Nripalat Bayam. Vitte we need not discuss at all. Where there is wealth, there is fear as to who will take it. But very interestingly, he puts it, he does not talk about even thief and other people who are going to covet the money. Nripalat Bayam, king, he is actually afraid of the king. King means the government. When they will put any tax and take it away, that's constant fear is there. Any person who is here, we have been put into the mindset in India particularly. All the things is centered around how to save tax or how to avoid tax or how to do this. The moment a person, suppose a person gives X amount of donation, he doubles it, he triples it. Immediately we are working as to whether it will invite tax, how to save, this is constantly the thing. And it is a wrong policy of the government that they have also put this fright in the minds of Indian people by their wrong policies. Okay, but it is possible. Suddenly there is a road widening, your property may go, something like that. So wherever there is a wealth, there is a fear that it may be taken away. And here he is giving that the authorities, a person who is in the authority level, he will take away the money. Then he says, Mane Dainya Bayam. For a person who has honor, respect, so what will disrespect do? That fear is always there. They value it much more than anything. Then, Mane Dainya Bayam. Bale Ripu Bhayam. For a person who is having power, he is afraid immediately of enemies. The more he has power, the more the enemies are there and they gang around him. So a person who is in the seat of having a lot of power is constantly having that vigil or watch as to when he will be attacked. Bale Ripu Bhayam. Rupe Jaraya Bhayam. For one who is valuing beauty and having beauty, there is always fear of old age. How many ads are there for above 31 ad, for above 41 how to keep ourselves young? All this is playing with the psychological fear of a person growing old. Nobody is able to accept that in a very graceful way. Rupe Jaraya Bhayam. Shastre Vadi Bhayam. This applies to particularly to us who are studying Vedanta and other things, who are all trying to master Shastra and read this and that. They are constantly afraid of a Vadi. Vadi is a person who debates based on a superior intellect and who is also having a knowledge of Shastra. If the fact that a person knows everything, he is constantly afraid that somebody else may defeat him in a intellectual argument, because others will then start following him or something. So in other words, we are talking about knowledge of the Shastras. We are not talking about a jnani who is replete with wisdom inside. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was a jnani. From worldly point of view, he was illiterate. Illiterate in the sense he did not go through formal education and nothing. He might have heard stories, Puranas, all those things he might know. But he was replete with wisdom inside. Brahmanyana was there in him. So it seems a great Pandit came and he wanted to have a debate or argument with Adi Shankaracharya on Brahman only, on the Supreme Brahman only. So he sat in front of him and he said, "What do you have to say on Brahman?" to Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. So Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said only one thing. I do not know how to say it in English. In Bengali we might say, in Tamil we might say, meaning, what do you say? Something that you touch with the tongue is called juta. To make juta, what you say in Bengali? Huh?
In Bengali.
Okay. That which cannot be touched by the tongue, that is Brahman, he says. What it means is, Brahman cannot come in your mouth. The moment you talk about Brahman, the moment you say something about it, you have lost it. That means that which cannot be explained, that which cannot be talked about, that which cannot be comprehended. That is what he meant actually. So he said it in a simple language. What do you say in Tamil? Echil Padavar. That means you cannot make that thing juta. You cannot make Brahman juta. This is what he said. What it means is, it cannot be touched by your tongue. It cannot be there in your mouth. Now, that person silently prostrated and went away. The other person, who was a great Pandit. So we are not talking about a Brahmajnani against whom nobody can stand. But otherwise, a person who is replete with knowledge, he is constantly afraid in terms of whether somebody will challenge him, somebody will disprove his theory. This is constantly there. Shastre Vadi Bhayam. Gune Khala Bhayam. Where there is a quality in a person, good quality in a person, he is afraid of vilification by others, either justly or unjustly. And lastly, he says, Kaye Kritantad Bhayam. All of us have this. This body is there. That is the basis of all the other possessions. With reference to this possession, only every other possession comes. My body. As long as you possess the body, there is fear of death. This is there. The moment you are born, you know you are going to die. That's all it is. So that fear of death is always there. That is the most powerful fear. So he says like this, each and everything that you possess is having something or the other to fear about. Fear is inherent in everything. Sarvam vastu bhayanvitam bhuvi nranam. All the things are fraught with fear for the people, for the men in this world. Bhuvi nranam. Vairagya meva abhayam. Only Vairagya is going to save you. Only thing that is going to make you a fearless person, a person who is not afraid, is that Vairagya. Vairagya is a great quality, and the 4 qualities that is required for entering Vedanta, Viveka, Vairagya comes there. Okay, to the extent we can say, to the extent that we are dispassionate, dispossessive about lower things, to that extent it will help us to gain this knowledge. So Vairagya, to practice that, you have to understand it is not a helplessness. You have the capacity maybe to enjoy. You have the taste and the object is available. Even after that, you are able to say no when you want to say no. That capacity in a person, based on his discrimination, to say no to something which is on his path, which is an obstacle in his path towards achieving something, that capacity is called as Vairagya. So that Vairagya, the moment you have that wealth, nobody can shake you, nobody can touch you. So that is the person he is talking about in this verse. In this verse, he is talking about Sarva Parigraha Bhoga Tyagaha. What is it that a person of renunciation he is going to be afraid of? What is it that he will not be happy about? So the happiness is actually something to do with his internal experience. It has nothing to do with the external contact. That is the corollary that we derive in this verse. At any stage, it is the renunciation that saves the day. It brings joy. Swamiji has given the small story in the Vedanta treatise also. Two friends meet after a very long time. Childhood friends, they meet after a very, very long time when they are in their adult stage, or they are grown up. And they cross over the river and go to the other side, which is infested with animals, forests, and they are lost in their discussion. They are discussing all the old memories and they are very happily chatting. They did not realize it was very late and the boatman had finished his business for that day. So when they requested him, he said, today it's not possible and it is a very dangerous thing to stay on this side. Then the businessman tempted him with more money, maybe double, triple, whatever he normally takes. The boatman agreed and then he crossed them over to the other side. So genuinely this businessman asked the renunciate monk. One of them was a businessman, another person was a monk. He had grown up to be a monk, a renunciate. So he genuinely asked him, you took up this life of renunciation and I became a businessman. But tell me today, what saved our lives? It is my money that saved the life. So what did you really achieve by renunciation? He was not trying to be egoistic, but he challenged him genuinely. To which the wise monk replied only one thing, carefully think, my friend, what saved our lives today? Was it your possession of money or was it your giving away of money? It is actually your giving away of money that saved the day. The businessman got the message that the moment we keep on possessing something and holding on to it, the idea of the story is that the moment we do not let go anything off, we are actually adding more and more weight to our personality, which becomes even more difficult to maintain, as it were, at whatever levels. Meaning, you are adding more pressure to your own mind also. So many weight that you are carrying with you that it is impossible for you to move. A Viraga is actually offloaded all his desires, therefore he is a free person. All that is what is represented by the picture that is given here. That he is just wearing a skin, that he is living under a temple, in a temple under a tree, he sleeps on the ground. That means he is not bothered about even the basic comforts of his life. To that extent he is detached. That's what we have to get the message here. So it is dispassionate attitude with reference to our own possessions. Whether we have it or don't have it, it is that attitude that marks a renunciation. So therefore, renouncing the desires and going to the higher level with reference to knowledge is very much possible. That is the message of the verse. Dwelling under tree in temple, sleeping on the ground, wearing skin, renouncing all possession and enjoyment, to him will not dispassion bring happiness. The lesson that we can take is we have to change our focus from being extrovert to introvert to that extent possible. Extrovert is a person who is constantly focused on acquisition and enjoyment outside himself. An introvert is a person who is focused on developing himself. This possessive attitude is clarified in the next verse. Next verse is talking about the culmination of this happiness in absolute happiness, which is the bliss of Brahman. We'll chant verse 19 twice.
योगरतो वा भोगरतो वा सङ्गरतो वा सङ्गविहीनः यस्य ब्रह्मणि रमते चित्तं नन्दति नन्दति नन्दत्येव योगरतो वा भोगरतो वा सङ्गरतो वा सङ्गविहीनः यस्य ब्रह्मणि रमते चित्तं नन्दति नन्दति नन्दत्येव.
Reveling in spiritual discipline or sense enjoyment, reveling in company or without company, he whose mind rests in Brahman reality, he is happy, happy, indeed happy. Nandati, Nandati, Nandatyeva. Like in the first verse, he says Bhaja Govindam 3 times. Here also he says Nandati, Nandati, Nandati 3 times. Probably to say where the real happiness lies, which is in the self, which is in Brahman. And since we seek happiness through body, mind and intellect, the 3 major avenues, the 3 equipments that we have, and through body we seek happiness, through mind we seek emotional pleasures, through intellect we seek intellectual joy. To say that that is not the real joy, he probably says Nandati, Nandati, Nandati 3 times. Probably that is the emphasis here. So, if at all there is a misconception in the 18th verse, that is corrected here, that what really matters. Who is really an ascetic? It is not a person simply because he is sleeping on the ground under a tree in a temple. That need not necessarily make him. A person can be constantly in a temple but his thoughts are somewhere else. A person can be constantly in his house and household activities, like we see various gopis in the Krishna's life. We see that they were constantly probably in great samsara and doing the household activities, but not for a moment that their thoughts are away from Krishna. So what really matters in life is where your thoughts are placed. So that is why we covered this in the last verse, Yoga Ratova, Bhoga Ratova. Rata means one who revels. Rata is just not a person who is actually is reveling in it. He is very, very indulging in it, meaning from an external point of view, you see him in it completely. So Yoga Ratova, that means a person is completely into spiritual disciplines. Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, all these are yoga. That means a person who is into religious practices. He does puja, he studies, he attends class, he studies various scriptures, literature, he goes to pilgrimage, various type. So you say that he is living like a yogi. Yoga Ratova or Bhoga Ratova, a person who is in complete indulgence. Every time he is in a party, he has so many dresses, cars and other types of enjoyments that he is there. He goes on vacation all the time. This type of indulgent life that he is leading. Sangaratova, a person, he is constantly in a company, constantly in the society, with the family, friends, circle, official life, social life, company life, corporate life, like that it is. Sangavihina, or he is alone by himself. whether he's out of society, whether he's meditating, whether he's a great monk, renunciate, all by himself he is there. Or even within a family, he always segregates himself in seclusion, like that type of a person. All this is fine, he says, but what really counts? Yasya Brahmani Ramate Chittam. Wherever you are, if your mind is constantly resting on Brahman, he alone is a happy person. So what really matters is, where is your mind? Where is it placed? There was a person in the life of, I think, or probably in the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or I do not know what time, in Odisha, in Puri, there was a great spiritual man who used to conduct Saptaha of Bhagavat. Bhagavat Katha is conducted in 7 days, stories. That is a great way of spreading the message, and it is also a form of bhakti, that you say the stories to others. Others also get benefited by listening. So wherever there is a chance, wherever there is a adhikari, wherever there is a group of people wanting, he will do that. He had dedicated his life for it, and he was genuine. There was a wealthy man in the city. Now, he was wanting to listen to Bhagavat Katha, and he wanted to organize in his house, in his palatial house. And he was recommended, and probably, I don't remember, his guru or somebody said, you have to go to him and say. He was not really interested, because that man is known to live a very luxurious life. Always having pan, always having nice, in those days electric fan is not there, but some type of a panka is there which is mechanically operated, meaning always he's wearing silk clothes, probably marble flooring type of house. And always sleeps in a cushion and bed. When anybody sees from outside point of view, they may not they may not associate him with anything to do with spirituality, and suddenly he says, I want to listen to Bhagavata story, means everybody will say it's just a show off. He is wanting to show that he can organize lecture or something like that. So this person was reluctant, but since the request is made and he is directed to go, he went there. And what is interesting is, he had not organized or anything, only he was there. Only he was there sitting, and this person has to say. Once he has committed, he has to say. So with that, not with that very full bhavana, because it did not just come to him, but he was saying, a portion came where he said some shloka. We do not know that shloka, but that shloka is talking about the great kripa or compassion of Lord Krishna. In some episode it came. The moment that person heard that, he was totally lost in raptures. He asked him to repeat again and again, and he was crying and crying. This is what is the actual state of that person. And this person just now only understood with what outwardly he saw him eating pan and resting in the cushion and wearing silk clothes and always having panka around him. This is what is the picture he had. But what was his internally, his bhakti, he did not know. Now only he came to know about that. And that inspired him, and he also got lost in that ecstasy. Both of them were lost in that ecstasy, and the servant actually had to drag this person away. He thought that this person is causing trouble to his master. He's making him cry more and more for some reason. He was very loyal to the master. This is the story. No, the episode only shows that that person was extremely in a very indulgent life. But his mind was something different. In the Puranas also we hear a story of Vrittasura. He was destined to be killed by Indra, and he is belonging to a Asura clan. He is belonging to the Asura clan, probably in the clan of Prahalada, in that lineage only because of that. But his bhakti towards Lord Vishnu was something probably no other Deva or God also had. Before he fights the war with Indra, where he knows what his fate is, he lets out a shloka on Lord Vishnu, which probably even the greatest of bhaktas cannot do. He talks about his surrender to the Lord. So a person can be outwardly very rough. What we have to remember here is, your internal thought and feeling you need not show to others. Others need not know how. If it gets expressed, it gets expressed. That's different. But who should really know your feeling? Who should really know your thought? It is your relationship with him only. That's all. Only he needs to know. Nobody else needs to know. External world, let them consider you to be a asura or a deva, to be a good person or a bad person. You have to have that nonchalant attitude towards that. You need to shrug your shoulders for that, because you are completely in tune with that. That is what this verse is talking about. Yasya Brahmani Ramate Chittam. Whose mind is resting on Brahman all the time, whose mind is able to linger around that supreme God all the time, he is indeed happy ever. You will see a smile in his face without any reason. A person who as though touches the periphery of Brahman from inside, that expresses outside as a great amount of joy. It is inexplicable. So imagine a person always in that thought. Again, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa only says a story that two persons, friends, they say that they meet and decide where to go in the evening. One person says there is a lecture in the temple, let's go there. Other person says, no, one new movie has released, let us go there. Afterwards they argue, and then they say that, okay, you go there, I'll go here, and they go there. But very interesting, in the movie hall, the person is always thinking about, oh, why did I come here? That person is actually enjoying all the nice spiritual discourse. This movie could have waited. I missed the opportunity. Like that, he was constantly thinking of the temple. And that person who has gone there, he said, this lecture I have heard again and again. I should have gone with that friend. He must have enjoying the movie. This was his thought. Meaning, throughout in the temple, he was constantly thinking of the movie and whatever was happening there, whatever he missed as enjoyment. So, outwardly, wherever you are placed, that doesn't matter. The thought that is there. So, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa is saying, that person gained punya this day and this person, had agitations that day. In terms of where their thought was. That was the, moral of the story. So, same thing. He says, yes, a sadhu or a saint was doing tapas in his hermitage in a small hut outside the village. And opposite to her hut, his hut was a prostitute. She had no other thing and no other scope, and she was into that profession. So this person, he was constantly telling her as to this is not right, and she was genuinely regretting, but without any choice she was doing, and she was daily repenting and praying to God. This person, from morning till evening, he was collecting one stone, seeing how many customers are coming to the house. So at the end of the day, he will say, you see, today this much sin you have committed. Like that, he used to chide her. So it is said that at the end of the life, this person went to Naraka and she went to Swarga. This is the same type of story only. So he is asking, what, I led a life of a sadhu, why have you given like that? You are leading a life of a sadhu outwardly. Constantly your thought was there. And you are thinking of what her customers she is getting and what they are doing there. She, even though her body was going through certain profession that she had undertaken, her constant thought was on me, on God. So she had come here. So what really matters in life is where and how we channelize our thoughts, where and how we place our thoughts. A person can be in and through all the family life, Sangaratova, but he is also constantly thinking of Brahman. A person who is alone, and he is also constantly thinking of Brahman, irrespective of outwardly wherever you are placed and whatever is your way of life, if your thoughts are resting on Brahman, you will be indeed happy. This is the message here. Also, remember chapter 3 verse 6, very important verse. He says, Karmendriyani samyamya yaste manasa smaran indriyarthan vimudatma mithyacharasya uchyate. He is talking about a pseudo sannyasi there. Karmendriyani samyamya. All the organs of action you restrain. That means you don't have the contact at the external level. You don't do action. You are like a renunciate. Ya aste manasa smaran. He who is always lingering in the sense object, the mind is moving in a chakra all the time. Indriyarthan, in the objects. He says he is a vimudatma. Vimudatma means he is an extreme foolish person. Mithyachara sauchate. Very powerful word Krishna uses in Gita. We don't find such words very easily. Mithyachara means a person who has a false conduct. A hypocrite. Hypocrite is. He is outwardly putting up a show and inwardly is completely a different person. He is a hypocrite, he says. So one must be very careful not to, in other words, your body, your words, your thought, all must be in the same line. That is called as a life of conviction. But where the subtlety starts is at the thought level. The thought must be always on the higher. Everything else will definitely follow. That is what you think you will speak, and that which will speak is what your body will also do. But the subtlest thing is at the thought level that you must have that. If a person is blessed enough to have his mind always resting on God, he shall be having uninterrupted joy. Revelling in spiritual discipline or sense enjoyment, revelling in company or without company, he whose mind rests in Brahman reality, he is happy. Happy, indeed happy. We'll conclude.
Poornam Adah Poornamidam Poornat Poornamudachyate Poornasya Poornamadaya Poornamevavashishyate